College football bowl season begins on Saturday, and the Sun Belt Conference will help to get it started as co-champion Troy heads a group of 5 bids, with the Trojans participating in the first game tomorrow in New Orleans. We'll break down all of the bowl games for the Sun Belt as we go one-on-one with Adam Luckett, UnderdogDynasty.com blogger for the Sun Belt Conference for SBNation.com on the OFN Meeting Room with Greg DePalma. All right, it's December 15, 2017. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning into the OFN Meeting Room as we talk Sun Belt Conference football with Adam Luckett. Adam, thanks for taking your time out to talk to us today.
Anytime, Greg. How you doing, my man?
Doing good. So we haven't talked Sun Belt football yet this season, so I'm glad I had an opportunity to get you on. And, of course, perfect timing with the game starting. And I know a lot of people don't get too excited sometimes with the beginning of the bowl season, but for Sun Belt fans, this is the big time because this is where all your games are the first week.
Yeah, you got 3 on the first Saturday, and then the total of 5 all in the first week and a half of the bowl season. And it's a big moment for the conference. The Sun Belt doesn't really get much national attention. Via games on national TV. Usually, if there are on national TV, it's going up against in a paycheck game where they're going to play an SEC school that they're really, overmatched, or it's on a weeknight when not many people are really tuning in when they're playing on a Wednesday. So this is a chance for, them to get out there and really make a statement.
Yeah, and actually the first game tomorrow with Troy, with the co-champ, that was the big story from the conference this year, going to LSU and picking up that win. So how has that impacted the program and Neil Brown? Because I remember, what was it about the DeMarcus Ware days, right? When this program was really causing this type of storm in college football where they were actually beating some pretty good teams. And look, even last year, Troy had that very good loss at Clemson. So Neil Brown seems to be doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, Neil Brown actually served as the offensive coordinator there at Troy about a decade ago and then left to take the Texas Tech offensive coordinator job. And when he left, that's when the program really started to fall on hard times. Larry Blakeney, who the field is named after, he was the head coach there for a long time, made the transition from the FCS ranks to FBS, to big boy football. And he was the reason for Troy, that program really emerging as one of the better group of 5 programs in the last 2 decades or so. And then as soon as he lost Brown there after the 2009 season, I believe it was, the program really fell off for a few years. The perennial one of the best programs in the Sun Belt since they've joined the league. But Brown has really just got them back to playing high-level football. Of course, last year they went 10-4 in his 10-3 in his second season, and went to Clemson early in the year and really challenged the future national champion. So some big things were expected from them this year, and of course they did cash in. Of course, everybody's going to know the LSU win, and that one got them a lot of national attention, and kind of made Brown a really hot name in some coaching circles. But they really do it. They're a balanced team. They're an air raid type offense. A lot of quick decisions by Brandon Silvers, completes a high percentage of his passes. But really the story of this Troy team has been their defense. Longtime defensive coordinator Vic Koenning used to call the defenses at North Carolina before he came to Troy. Has really done a great job, and it's really built a solid defense that hasn't given up more than 25 points in a single game this season, and has the top red zone defense in all of America.
Yeah, because I was actually surprised that Silvers, who threw for over 3,000 yards last year, wasn't really putting up the big numbers this year. Is this just turned into more of a Jordan Chun led offense? Any particular reason? Did they have some key losses in the passing game heading into this season? What's gone on there with the offense?
The offense actually returned all of its skill position talent from last season, including Silvers, who was a 4th-year starter. But they lost Antonio Garcia, who was one of
Oh
the best
yeah.
offensive linemen in the country last year. Was drafted by the Patriots, I believe, in the third round. So that their offensive line, it took them a little bit to get going, but really the passing game has just been off all season for whatever reason. I believe Brown gave up play calling duties this year, so that may
Okay.
have had something to do with the issues they're having. But really just haven't been off. But here lately, they have been playing better football. They scored over 30 points in 4 of their last 5 games, so they're starting to get going a little bit. But even with Shun, he ran for was led the Sun Belt in rushing last year. He only has a little bit over 700 yards this year. After the monster game at LSU, came back in the South Alabama game and had a leg laceration. I believe he needed like 14 or 15 stitches, and he really hasn't been the same since. And it's really not the same offense without him running the ball. He's the feature guy of the offense. So it's really just kind of been, bumps in the road that they can't really get over. They've had some injuries. Emmanuel Thompson, who was their top receiver last year, has been out the last couple games.
Okay.
But so it just little bumps here and there. But when they need to, they put points on the board and they do just enough to get victories.
Yeah. How is the health of Chun right now, and the team heading into the bowl game?
They're pretty banged up. Chun, he's going to play, but he hasn't looked the same
Okay.
since he went out in that South Alabama game. I believe the most carries he's had is 18 since then, but it seems like the coaching staff is really kind of being careful with him. And he was the guy that last year was the guy that was regularly getting over 25 carries per game, was a real workhorse type back. It just that hasn't happened since that LSU game where he carried the ball over 30 times. And then some offensively, Thompson, like I just mentioned, out. There's a freshman by the name of Trey Eifert that's really emerged as a big play threat. He's going to be out for this game.
Huh.
Their tight end slash, I guess, H-back, Clark Quisenberry, he's been out the last couple games. He kind of emerged late in the year as a viable red zone target. And then defensively, Blaze Brown, who's a junior corner, was all Sun Belt. I believe he had 6 interceptions to lead the Sun Belt this year. Been one of the better group of 5 cornerbacks. He is going to be out for this game for an injury suffered against Arkansas State, and going against a high-powered passing attack that North Texas employs that could be an issue. But Troy has a freshman by the name of Marcus Jones that is a future star, and expect him to get in there and make some plays this Saturday.
Yeah. What does he have? 3 kick return touchdowns, Marcus Jones?
Yeah. Set a school record, 3 kick return touchdowns, and he scored 2 in the big win over Arkansas State to clinch a conference championship. He recorded a kick return touchdown to put Troy up 7-3 early, and then really the clincher, he took an interception 100 yards back to the house. So whenever he gets the ball, he's real explosive. He has dealt with fumbling issues on punt returns this year. In South Alabama, an upset loss, Troy, he put the ball on the turf. But other than that, he's shown some real nice things. Troy's played him inside at nickel, but I think he's going to be an outside corner next year. Should be one of the premier players in the Sun Belt in 2018.
All right, and their opponent, North Texas, is also dealing with a big injury. Jeffrey Wilson, he's not going to play in the game. Do you know? Do you have an update at all on that situation? I know it's a different conference, but I believe the last I heard is that he wasn't going to play, and that's a big loss considering he didn't play in the championship game against FAU, and they just couldn't really get anything going. In that game. He's a pretty big part of that offense. So a lot of key injuries for both teams heading into this bowl game, making it kind of hard to make an accurate prediction other than just the fact, as you said, Troy seems to be really maybe peaking at the right time. And you can excuse that South Alabama loss because that loss came after the bye, after the LSU win. And we see it all the time. You come up with like a program-changing type wins for programs like Troy, throw in the week off, and it's very hard to concentrate the very next game when you're favored by 3 touchdowns, and lo and behold, you turn over the ball 7 times.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to win many games when that happens. You mentioned Jeffrey Wilson, a senior, averages 6.5 yards per carry. North Texas has 2 nice freshmen, mainly Nick Smith, who's played well in a limited duty. But you saw in that CUSA championship. This offense just isn't the same without Wilson in there. They kind of lose their balance. And Mason Fine's a good sophomore quarterback, but when they're one-dimensional, they're a little shaky. Fine's thrown 13 interceptions, which is a lot. And then going against a defense like Troy, that's definitely a worry, I think, if you're a North Texas supporter.
Yeah, if I'm taking this game, I am leaning towards Troy based on, they've had just a very good resume this season. You beat LSU, and LSU, that's very, very impressive for a Sun Belt team. They had a very competitive loss in the Boise game. Matter of fact, that was Blaise Brown had a pick six in that game, I believe. Correct?
That's right, he did.
Yeah. So the defense, matter of fact, they've beaten a total of 5 bowl teams this year, I believe Troy has.
Yeah. It's been a really good season for Troy. And really, this defense, when you see air raid, you see Neil Brown, you're thinking of they're going to win games 38-30. But really, it's been the opposite. They've really leaned on this defense, and Vic Koenning has done one of the better jobs of any defensive coordinator in 2017.
All right. The next game for the Sun Belt is going to be about halftime of the New Orleans Bowl, and that's going to be the Cure Bowl in Orlando, the 3rd edition. And Georgia State will represent the Sun Belt in that game. Played the first ever bowl game a couple of years ago. Lost that game to San Jose State. So second bowl appearance for Georgia State. Same bowl. They're taking on a Western Kentucky team. Of course, no Jeff Brom. Completely different team. And, this game is, I must say, this is a game where I do like the Conference USA team. I think Western Kentucky got off to a slow start this year. With the coaching change, Mike White just didn't look good at all. First 5 games, he averaged 251 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions in his first 5 games combined. But over his last 7, he's averaged over 367 yards a game, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So they've gotten more comfortable with first-year head coach Mike Sanford. You've got first-year head coach Sean Elliott with Georgia State. It's a nice story. It looks like Elliott's doing a good job there, but I don't know. I think a little too much maybe for Georgia State going up against Western Kentucky, as long as Western Kentucky looks like they're actually motivated for the game, because you would think Georgia State will be looking for their first ever bowl win.
I agree with you. On paper, WKU has the better team and really should probably win this one by double digits. But it's been a disappointing season for the Tops. And you just don't know. In some bowl games, you don't know if Team A or Team B, if they're even going to show up. And for Georgia State, you got to think they'll be pretty motivated for this one. It's a team that I really didn't expect much out of this year. I was thinking that they were probably around a 4-8 team. And it's really kind of a weird year for Georgia State. Of course, they moved into Turner Field. They renovated it, made it a football stadium. Of course, Turner Field is the old home of the Atlanta Braves. So we were expecting for them to maybe win some big games at home. And they really didn't. They went 1-4 at home. And they, including the season opener loss to Tennessee State, but they turned it around and went 5-1 away from home, and the only loss happened up in Happy Valley against Penn State. So really kind of a strange season, but Sean Elliott's done a really good job. If it wasn't for Neil Brown beating LSU, he likely would have been the Sun Belt Coach of the Year. They've got a receiver by the name of Penny Hart, who's a sophomore, future NFL prospect. Really just explosive, does it all. Really good route runner, has over 1,000 yards this season. But that's it for the offense. After that, Georgia State's kind of a one-trick pony on offense. And if you stop him, you really stop them. And they're really kind of an anemic offense, averaging under 20 points per game.
All right. And then you've got a little bit later on in the evening for the Sun Belt, you have the Camellia Bowl. Arkansas State represents the Sun Belt against Middle Tennessee from the Conference USA. 4th edition of the Camellia Bowl. This is going to be in Alabama. All 3 years, this bowl game the result has been decided by a total of 10 points. So they've been very, very close games. Arkansas State's the short favorite in this one. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that Richie James has really just not played most of the year. He played the first couple of games of the year for Middle Tennessee, big-time receiver, over 1,600 yards receiving last year. It just hasn't been able to come back. They shut him down a short while ago. And also, I hear that Brad Anderson is dealing with a leg injury. He's their number one running back, their number two receiver. So some injuries. Stockstill came back. Since he's been back, things have been kind of as normal as they could be for the Raiders. But Arkansas State has been, for the Sun Belt, they've been the premier program for the past 3 or 4 years, haven't they?
Yeah, especially with Stockstill behind center. Of course, his dad Rick is the head coach at Middle Tennessee. I believe he's been there for 12 seasons now. When he's in the lineup, they're a really potent offense. I believe since he returned, they scored over 30 points in each of their games. And so this is a matchup where you've got some really, really two talented quarterbacks with talented offenses. On the other side, Arkansas State has a quarterback from Justice Hansen who transferred from Oklahoma. He was the Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year, threw for 34 touchdowns, and really they throw the ball deep a lot, Arkansas State does. And Blake Anderson is the head coach. He calls plays, was formerly Larry Fedora's offensive coordinator at North Carolina, and they're really, really potent offense. We're easily the best offense in the Sun Belt this season. So I'm expecting a big-time shootout there in Montgomery, Alabama for the Camellia Bowl.
Yeah, I'm actually this one's a little bit tougher to call, but I actually think Arkansas State may not be a bad play here. I like Hansen. It's ever since Hansen took over for Wojtek a couple years ago. Boy, did this team take off, and he has definitely been a big time transfer pickup for the program. And this has been the class of the Sun Belt the last few years. Now they did lose to South Alabama. Which was a pretty surprising loss. But South Alabama, as you know, covering the Sun Belt, they seem to have like 2 or 3 like big upsets every year, and then they don't do anything else. So beating both Arkansas State and Troy, 2 of the top teams from the Sun Belt. But Arkansas State had that loss with Troy last time out. And that pretty much decided Troy is the co-conference champion with App State. So, but Arkansas State, tell me about some of their other top players. I see that Warren Wand and Chris Murray, a couple of pint-size skill position players, very key to their offense.
Yeah, they've got a really deep receiver core. Chris Murray is one of their better ones. You also see a guy named Omar Bayless, pretty good. Probably their best deep threat. Justin McKinnis, another big receiver. He's got a transfer from Arkansas by the name of Kendrick Edwards, which is like 6'4", 6'5". So real physical presence. But my favorite player on their offense is tight end Blake Mack, who's a senior. You'll be hard pressed to find a better receiving tight end in all of college football. I think he's going to be have a real good shot at getting drafted here in a few months. Really a good potent receiver. And then on the other side of the football, a guy people may know of on a national level, Javon Roland-Jones, just needs 1 sack to break the all-time sacks NCAA career record held by Terrell Suggs. He's just been dynamic ever since he was a freshman here at Arkansas State. And he's going to be a guy that NFL scouts are really going to be looking at as he's really an elite pass rusher.
Now, what is it about someone like Jones, when you've seen a lot of these players in this conference, what separates him from some of the other talented players you've seen? Is he right up there at the top defensively as far as because NFL loves players who can attack the quarterback. So what's so special about this particular player?
He's got really good quickness and size. He's like the prototypical size for an outside linebacker in a 3-4 scheme in the NFL. About 6'4", 240, 45 pounds, but he's really, really quick coming off the edge. But he also has multiple moves he can use on you. Now, he can go inside twist. He's got a pretty good spin move. So he's got really good versatility. But what he does best is rush the passer. That's what he does. He's gonna, when he gets to the NFL, he's gonna be probably a specialist. I don't know if he's an every down player, but
he'll be an outside linebacker, right? At the next level.
Yeah. At the next level, he'll be an outside linebacker in a team that runs a 3-4. So that's something that teams are gonna have to work around and figure out if that's what we need. But as far as just strictly third and long, and you need somebody to come off an edge, you're gonna have a hard time finding somebody that's better at that than Javon Roland-Jones.
All right, now let's move on to a couple other games that are going to take place after Saturday, and let's start first of all with the Dollar General Bowl. That's where you have the other co-champion App State against Toledo. Now, this is going to be on December 23rd. This is going to be in Mobile, and they're taking on Toledo. See, I like this game, and the reason I say these are the games that I like because even North Texas Troy is pretty good because because you're really looking at co-champions as well. You know, there was no championship game in the Sun Belt, so North Texas really is considered like a co-champion if they had no championship game. And then here in the General Bowl, Dollar General Bowl, you have the co-champions Appalachian State and the champion Toledo of the MAC. So I like that. I like that when they pit these champions of the smaller conferences together. Toledo's a touchdown favorite because they should be. I mean, they're the better team. So what do you think about App State? I haven't really been as impressed with App State, to tell you the truth. I know they have a nice season, co-champions and all, but I don't know, I just expected a little bit more from them this year. I thought that they'd be a little bit more dominant, even though they destroyed Louisiana to end the season. But there were some times this year, they lost to UMass, they lost back-to-back Louisiana Monroe. They struggled with Coastal Carolina and Idaho. I just expected a little bit more from them this year.
Yeah, you're not the only one that thought that. Even their fans were a little disappointed in the season. They had a big rivalry game with Wake Forest. It's both teams from North Carolina. They don't play much, but they have played in their past. And they lost really kind of a crushing way, 2019. I believe they missed a field goal, missed an extra point that would have tied it. That really kind of cost them the game. So ever since then, they just kind of been ho-hum. They had a running back by the name of Jalen Moore, who everybody thought was going to lead the Sun Belt in rushing and maybe potentially be a 2,000-yard runner. And he had a really, really slow start to the season. It's really just now playing at a high level. So that really held them back. And, of course, they got in that funk there in the season where they lost at UMass in overtime and then turned around and lost to ULM, Louisiana Monroe. But ever since then, they bounced back and they played well to close the season. And in this matchup, these two teams actually played last year in the Camellia Bowl. And it was one of the better bowl games of the whole 2016 bowl season. Appalachian State won by a touchdown. I believe it came down to the last possession. So them just winning a conference championship, you can never take that too lightly. But it's been a little bit of a disappointing season. But here they are again going bowling and getting a chance to knock off a very good Toledo team, which may be without a doubt, it's one of the top group of five teams this season.
Yeah, and you would think because motivation is very important in bowl games, you would think that Toledo will have the motivation of a revenge spot after losing to App State last year in the bowl game. Moore's a kid, though. I mean, injuries or personal issues? I mean, how can you explain? Is this something that we're probably going to hear about in the offseason about why things just didn't go as planned? I mean, he had over 1,400 yards rushing last season, Sun Belt Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year. So it's just one of those things, or do you think that there's something that we'll find out later on?
I don't know. I think it's something we'll probably find out later on. Maybe he had to play banged up.
Yeah.
I know last year it was kind of a two-headed monster in the backfield with him and Marcus Cox. So a lot of defenses going into last season were really focused on Cox.
Okay.
I think Moore caught a lot of people by surprise. And I guess this year people were just more keyed in on him. Now, he didn't play in 2 games. I believe he missed the UMass game for injury, and he also missed the Georgia Southern game. But he's looked like a new back in the last 2 games. Ran for 239 yards against Georgia State in really a game that was a big win. At that time, Georgia State was in the running to win a conference title, and they had to go on the road. Appalachian State did too, to Atlanta, and they really dominated Georgia State. And Moore was a big reason why. And then their last game, he ran for over 100 yards again. So he's really starting to turn it on, and he's only a junior still. So maybe we'll see what we expected to see this year next year.
Yeah. Now, when they blew out Louisiana, in the last game of the season, Speaking of Louisiana, what was the situation with Hudspeth? Why is he no longer there? Because he did such a good job there. I mean, I always thought he was one of the more underrated coaches just from what I've seen, and all the accomplishments of winning, going to the New Orleans Bowl year after year, pulling off some upsets. What went on there?
Okay, first things first. This past year, uh, Louisiana Lafayette, they got a new athletic director, Brian
Okay,
Maggard.
okay,
So that's first. And
okay.
then Hudspeth, when he got there, they were awesome right away. They went to 4 straight New Orleans blows, I believe, finished 9-4, or excuse me, yeah, 4 straight 9-4 seasons, all with wins in the New Orleans Bowl. And then the NCAA came to town. They had some recruiting violations, and he lost an assistant coach or two. And really, since then, he hasn't got any quarterback play. They followed that up with a 4-8 season in 2015. So really, a disappointing season. Then these next 2 years, he's lost 7 games back to back, and
Got it.
he was the highest paid coach in the Sun Belt. And so when you're paying a coach over $1 million in that league, your goal is to win conference titles, not to finish the season with 7 losses.
Sure.
And really, what plagued him was the NCAA issues, not being able to develop a quarterback, and then he had got a new boss who was just ready for a change.
And what do you think? Is he somebody that we're going to see more than likely? What do you think? Assistant coach somewhere with a Power 5 school, something like that. What do you think about him as a coach?
Yeah, Mississippi State actually just picked him up. Joe Moorhead, that was one of the first hires he
Oh,
made. I believe he's going to coach tight end
okay.
for the Bulldogs this year. But Hudspeth, I'm not sure if we'll ever see him on a FBS sideline again. I think those NCAA issues are really that's always going to taint your record no matter what. And then you look that he couldn't win in one of the best jobs in the Sun Belt. Louisiana's a school where you can really get some high level talent when you compare it to this conference. So if he's going to be a head coach again, he's only 49 years old, which is still pretty young, but he may have to go to the FCS ranks. That's what he wants to do. But if not,
Okay.
he could probably stick around as a Power 5 assistant.
And then the last bowl game for a Sun Belt team is the biggest story, and that's New Mexico State going to a bowl game for the first time since 1960. The Arizona Bowl. It's the third edition, and Mountain West Conference teams, Mountain West Conference team Air Force beat South Alabama, Sun Belt team last year, and you get Utah State from the Mountain West Conference this year going up against New Mexico State. I actually like the way Utah State played second half of the season. This is going to be a tough game for New Mexico State, but you got to believe there's no doubt that this is one of those bowl teams that will be flying high and loving and soaking in every moment of being in a bowl game. So you're not going to have to worry about any sort of letdown or distractions for New Mexico State in this bowl game. So what kind of a season has it been? And I got to assume that that the program must be real happy with Doug Martin.
Yes, absolutely. New Mexico State entered this season. They had a running back by the name of Larry Rose who had won a Sun Belt Player of the Year honors in the past. They had some experienced wide receivers, and then they had a quarterback, a senior quarterback who got a 6th year of eligibility, Tyler Rogers. So we knew they'd have the offense to really make this run. It was just what could they do on defense? Last year they had one of the worst defenses in the Power 5, and this year they've kind of fixed that. Their defense has been just enough, and they got off to a hot start and really kind of blew some games that they could have won. They went to Appalachian State, I believe Rogers threw 6 interceptions, and if he doesn't throw those, they probably beat App State on the road. They had Arizona State on the ropes in the first game and really kind of let that one slip away. So it's really they missed some opportunities, and it really came down to that last game, and they got the win over South Alabama. And it was one of the coolest scenes of the college football season was seeing them celebrate on the field. And of course, Doug Martin, he started off slow, but he's done a good job rebuilding this. And this was a big moment for this program because they are going into independent football next year. Them and Idaho will no longer be members of the Sun Belt. And so that this is going to give this program some positive momentum as they enter that next phase.
So New Mexico State now Idaho are they staying in the? I just lost. Well, we'll get him right back. Sometimes when you're talking live to a guest, they can get disconnected. But we'll get right back with Adam. I'm sure Adam will call right back in. But by the way, the last time New Mexico State went to a bowl, believe it or not, they've been to 3 bowl games in their history, and they were the Sun Bowl. So it's not like they were in some crazy sounding bowl game, and they were actually a pretty good program back in 1960, if you can believe it. And you know what's also interesting is that the last time that they played in the bowl game back in 1960, they played versus Utah State. So that's kind of cool if you think about that. So it's been a long time for the Aggies. We've talked about them on this network, as you know, if you've been following us on OFN College Football every week. We preview the games, we give you the picks and all that stuff. So if you remember, several times earlier in the season, they were one of our little pet teams. In other words, teams that we kind of like to get behind from smaller conferences that kept covering games for us. Because if you look at it at the beginning of the season, let's see, they had 4 straight covers. So they started the season 2-2 and 4-0 against the spread. And then let's see, and then game 5, that was a push. And then they covered game 7. So they actually started the season 5-1-1 against the spread. Now, things have changed, though, in the second half of the season for the Aggies. They are just 1-4 against the spread in their last 5. And they barely covered against Texas State, as they're only covered down the stretch, and that's not a good team, Texas State, from the Sun Belt. They also lost to Louisiana. We just told you how Louisiana hasn't been playing all that well. So that was a disappointing performance. And their final 2 games, remember we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when we mentioned that they needed to win the last 2 wins for bowl eligibility. And they were double-digit favorites in both of those home games, and they survived both of them, winning against Idaho by 7 and South Alabama by 5. So, but hey, they get in. That's all that matters. Right now, I believe Utah State is a 4-point favorite in this game. But as I said, I mean, look, this is going to be a tough one for me because of the fact that, I think it's this team. Like I said, I think they're obviously going to be flying high. There ain't no question about that. Look, talent-wise, this is a regular game on a regular Saturday, and it's on a neutral field, and I'm definitely taking Utah State. Don't forget, it was just a few years ago that Utah State was one of the top teams in the Mountain West. I mean, they were really playing some inspiring football. A lot of people. I mean, Gary Anderson was the head coach, of course, and he went on to get some bigger and better jobs. But Matt Wells, took over. And the first year he won 11 games. Actually, the first 3 years, Matt Wells won 30 games. So he averaged 10 wins a year the first 3 years taking over the program. But the last couple of years, though, they've only had 9 combined wins. So that all of a sudden, that obviously was, you started to think, well, was Matt winning with Gary Anderson's players? Those 3 years, and now he's got his guys, and they were going well. So you really had to think that Matt Wells was in one of those situations where if he didn't get this team to a bowl this season, who knows? I mean, he could have been somebody that would have been on his way out. But after starting off getting destroyed at Wisconsin, and then even getting blown out at Wake Forest, they actually started to build some momentum. They had some competitive losses. They had a couple of decent wins. And then at the end of the season, they won 2 out of the last 3. They win in New Mexico. They blew out Hawaii, and they had a 3-point loss at Air Force, and they were winning that game. and Air Force won that game in come from behind fashion. So that's what I was saying. I like the way Utah State played at the end of the season. They were playing better. So I think they're the better team. But these are the types of underdog. And by the way, this game is December 30th, so just keep this in mind. So you got a long way to go before you have to talk about New Mexico State football. And this also should give you a good indication, too, because you're talking December 30th, about whether or not this is you'll be able to take a look at all the other games in the Sun Belt by then and say, okay, well, how's the Sun Belt? Is the Sun Belt, are they at that point, we'll have 4 games coming, we'll be able to evaluate the conference in a whole, and you'll be able to figure out whether or not the Sun Belt, because that's something that you always have to keep an eye on. Matter of fact, let's see. If we take a look at which conferences right now that I would tell you to stay away from while we're on this topic, I think the one conference that has been the most disappointing over the last couple of years, I think, let's see, where's my information? There it is. It's the American and the MAC. So now we'll be talking MAC football and the American Athletic. Definitely take a look back or check back with us next week. We'll have some more interviews on this network. But the MAC just 7-23 the last 5 years combined. Now, only one MAC school will be playing a Sun Belt school, and that is the Toledo game. And don't forget, as we mentioned, Toledo lost to App State last year. So once again, the MAC, by the way, the MAC was 0-6 last year, and they were 0-5 4 years ago. So 7-23 combined the last 5 years, the MAC. The American, just 8-17 the last 4 years, but Conference USA will not be playing any American conference teams. So they've got a couple of Conference USA, actually 3 Conference USA teams, and also a MAC and a Mountain West. So anyway, unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're probably, I'm not sure exactly what happened with our guest, Adam. He's probably had some phone issues. Let's see. Yeah, we have some phone issues. So I am going to have Adam call me back. And if he's able to call me back and fix his phone issues, then I'll be able to end this interview, because there's still a few other things I wanted to talk to him about. Now, before I do move on, and hopefully we get back at him here in a second, just wanted to remind you that we already have some shows on demand from yesterday and today. Dan Shanka came on yesterday, and we went over the profiles of the top players to keep an eye on for the for the FCS playoffs. You got the semifinals. You got one game tonight, one game tomorrow. Jeremiah Briscoe, who is quarterback for Sam Houston State, is going to get drafted. So he's going to be playing tonight against North Dakota State. That has been a powerhouse FCS team. So that's definitely the top game of the weekend in the FCS. So we talked about that. Also, we talked Oregon football yesterday. Earlier today, I had Chris Dufresne on talking some national football. So we had an opportunity to go over some of the big games, big storylines, as well as, of course, his playoff predictions. So that should be available on demand a little bit later on. And for you NFL fans, we had our NFL show yesterday previewing Week 15 in the NFL. That's also available on demand. So, but next week, the Bowls pick up once again on, let's see, they pick up again on Tuesday. So there's no bowl games on Sunday or Monday, but there'll be a bowl game pretty much every day starting Tuesday. So you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then you've got the day off. Let's see, and that's Christmas. And then you move on to the 26th, and so forth and so on, 27th, 28th. So anyway, that is what's going to be coming up, and we're definitely going to be here to make sure that we have everything covered for you on the Our Football Radio Network. And we're looking forward to having more interviews with our special guests. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and we'll have more college football talk all the way through till the playoffs, and also, of course, the NFL playoffs with Tony Mejia. So thanks for tuning in. Our Lads Football Radio Network. We'll see you next time. Transmissions, where was you? Now try to push, try to keep us all down, and hope that we will never see